Welcome to this tutorial on how to build an instance of a Node.js server that is hosted through a service called Heroku. Node is a backend framework that makes writing APIs and making web apps super simple. You can easily deploy server code in minutes without having to actually have a server. It creates instances with custom server code written in JavaScript that conforms to a very nice input-output model. The advantage of this framework is if you are a front-end developer that knows JavaScript, you can now use that knowledge to easily create a backend without learning a new language. So the things you need to do is install Node, and along with that comes the Node Package Manager, NPM for short, which is the host for all the frameworks and libraries that you need while creating Node code.
In order to make sure that you installed Node properly, go ahead and open terminal and type Node version. And you should see this come up. It's the latest version. Also, check to make sure NPM is installed. Just hit NPM, and you should get this output. Okay, once you installed Node, come over to Heroku and sign up for a free account, and then we're gonna install the Heroku CLI command line interface. Okay, so now we're gonna install the Heroku command line tools. So to do that, you're gonna use the Node Package Manager, npm, and you're gonna hit sudo npm install. The -G stands for globally, so you're gonna install it for the whole user rather than just in this directory, and then Heroku. To make sure that you installed that correctly, just go ahead and hit Heroku. You should get a big list of commands.
A very important step is that you need to clone the starter code repository that I have created for this tutorial. So to do that, navigate to some directory where you want this to be stored, and type git clone and then this URL. If your clone was successful, hit ls, and you should have a folder called Node Heroku Demo in this directory. Okay, so now that you have your Heroku command line tools, we're going to create our first project. And in order to do that, you're going to navigate to the root directory of the repo that you cloned earlier. To see if you're there, just hit ls and these files should pop up. The first thing you need to do, or the next thing you need to do, is log into Heroku. So to do that, you go Heroku, login. Now that you're logged in, you can create your first project. So to do that, you're going to type Heroku create and then the project name, and this can be anything you want as long as it's not already taken by somebody. So we can call ours Node Heroku Demo 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like it's good. To check that it created, come over to your dashboard and refresh it, and there it is. So now that we created the app, we have to connect and create a repo, a local repo, and connect it to the remote that Heroku is hosting. So to do that, you're going to make sure that you're in the root directory of the of what you cloned earlier, and you're going to hit git init, and then you're going to add the remote. So you're going to say Heroku git remote a, and then this is going to be the name of your project, whatever you named it in the previous step. So I named my Node Heroku Demo 1, 2, 3, 4. Hit that. So now you're going to make a push to this new repo that you added. So to do that, you follow standard git push command. So you do git add dot git commit. And the M means that you're going to leave a message. And let's just call this first commit. And then it looks like there was nothing to commit, so we didn't actually add anything. But now you're going to do git push Heroku, which is the name of the branch, or the name of the remote, and then the name of the branch is master. So once you pushed, the output should look something like this. It builds successful. So as I mentioned earlier, Node uses a thing called the Node Package Manager, which hosts all of the libraries that Node needs to use. And one of them that we are going to be using is called Express. The JavaScript that we're going to be writing is going to be backend code for this app that we are going to be making. Express handles incoming HTTP requests, GET, POST, and any of them. And then it calls a function that will send a response or do whatever you want it to do. The way you manage these packages is you put them under dependencies in your package.json file. So the dependency that we're going to be adding is called Express, and its version is 4.9.8. So now we're going to start writing some server code. So open up server.js, and the first line that we're going to write is we're going to include the package that we added as a dependency. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell Express what directory to use as its static directory, basically its home directory. So to do that, you type in this line, and we're going to set it to public. Public is the directory that we have the CSS and the JS and the JavaScript in. The next thing that we need to do is we need to set the directory that the app is going to use for its views and what engine it's going to use to display those views. So in views, we have our home page, and that's the only view that we're going to be loading. So we set the directory to views. The view engine that we're going to be loading is called EJS, and in order to use it, we have to add it as a dependency in our package.json file. So go back to server.js, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to tell our server what port it should be running on. We're going to set it as port 3000 for now. So the next thing that we're going to set up is the routes for Express to use when it gets an incoming request. So the first kind of request that we're going to use is a GET request. So if our app receives a GET request at the URL of that, we want it to do these things. So we're going to put a function in there, and the function is going to have two parameters. It's going to have a request and a response. Once we get a request, we're going to log it out so we can see what it looks like. Now we've told our server what port to listen to and what to do when it receives a GET request. The next thing is to tell the app to start listening on its port for incoming requests. So to do that, you say app.listen, you give it the port name, and you give it a function. This is a completion function that will run if it successfully connects at the port that we gave it. And if it does, we want to log out what port it's currently listening on. The front-end JavaScript library that we're going to be using is called AngularJS, and if you're not comfortable with it, don't worry about it. Just keep following along. So now come over to main.js, and we're going to tell our controller to perform a GET request to our Heroku server. So use the HTTP GET, and then here you're going to put the address of your server. To find that out, go over to Heroku, go to your app, and then go to settings. Down here under Heroku domain is where you're going to find it. the URL, put https / your domain name and then slash. After we perform the request, then perform a function with the response. Console.log response. To perform a quick recap, first thing we did was we added our dependencies, Express and EJS. We got those from the Node package manager that Node uses to handle all of its libraries. We then set up our server to require Express and set our app to Express. We told our app to use the static library public as its home directory. We set the views directory to our views directory, and we set the view engine to EJS. We set the port of our server to 3000, and we told it what to do when it receives a GET request at this address. Next, we told it to start listening on the port, and once it successfully connects, to log out which port it's running on. In our controller, we made a GET request at the address of our Node server, and when we receive a response, we're going to log out the response. In order to use the dependencies that we added, we have to install them. Make sure that you're in your root directory of your project. Hit ls to make sure. And then install the npm packages with just npm install. You should now see a new folder called Node Modules with EJS and Express inside of it. To test our app, we can simply use and start a Node server right in this directory with node server.js. And it printed out what port we were running on, which is 3000. And that's what we wanted it to do. So now that we know that it's running successfully, let's deploy it to the Heroku server. So as before, follow the same steps. Once you built your project and uploaded it to the server, you should see this build successful message. Now that we know that our server is working, let's modify this GET request a little bit. When we visit the URL of our server, we want it to render our index HTML page. To do that, you say response.render pages/index. We're also going to add another GET request. So following the same format, except this time we're going to change the URL. So this little bit goes at the end of the URL of your request. And once this server receives a URL with /API/, it's going to perform this function. And what this function does, it's going to say response.send, and it's going to send a string, and it's going to get the host name of our request, which will be our domain name of this server. Now open up your main.js file, and we have to modify the URL a little bit. In order to make a GET request to that endpoint, we have to use at the end of our URL API/. So now this is going to make a GET request. It's going to contact this server. The server is going to say, I received a GET request at this address, so I'm going to perform this function. And I'm going to send a response with this string of the current host name back to my controller, and we're going to log out the response. Since we made changes, we have to redeploy our app to Heroku. You should see build successful again, and now we're going to launch an instance of our Heroku app in our browser to see what it is doing. To do that, you say Heroku open. And here's what it's doing right now. And if we inspect our console, we got the response, and it logged it out because we told it to right here. Currently, the way this web page is set up is it's supposed to be displaying the server name right here. But in our JavaScript, we haven't set the variable server yet, which it's going to use as the string to display in between these tags. To set that variable, we're going to use scope.server, and we're going to set it equal to response.data. And what response.data is it's this string right here, the domain name, our current host, and that's what we want. So save that and redeploy your app. Once you've successfully built your project, reload the page, and it should display the server name right here. If you did that, congratulations, you finished this tutorial. Now you're a Node expert.